Alright. So I know that there are always like times where you would might feel depressed from the amount of pressure because basically there's also a few times where I felt depressed. I felt depressed at like times where basically when school was like pressuring me a little too much, and so like I basically like sometimes feel sometimes quite depressed and stuff. And there's also times when I've realized I've overindulged in some addictions like fapping, for example. Like I fapped too much, like, or played video games for like 8 hours straight. I would be like sometimes quite in a depressed mood, and I'd wander with that. And first things first, let me tell you what causes depression or sadness, or like I should say dopamine deficit state. Well, first things first, depression is basically the state where you feel like nothing is interesting anymore. You feel like nothing really interests you anymore. Like the video games you play, if you it doesn't feel interesting anymore. The thing that you're watching, the thing that you jack off to, like doesn't feel as good as it was before. That's basically what they would call like this is like bro science, but they call that like the dopamine deficit state, where basically lacking enjoyment, lacking interest, and that's basically like quite where depression starts. Basically, there's substances that causes you to be pleasurable, be to have pleasure, because like video games, for example, or fapping. When you're fapping, it feels good, right? It feels so good and stuff like that. But once you've like climaxed and like you clean up, it just doesn't feel as good anymore. It just feels like horrible, and you hate yourself, and that's literally like quite like that's where like a little bit of depression slowly starts to come out. So basically, a little bit of depression because your baseline has been going down below, and basically that just means that depression is slowly creeping up, and you're basically getting more and more addicted to fapping because it is a pleasurable. And the thing is, when you're in pain, when you're like quite sad because you just fapped and everything, when you're feeling that, you basically just end up like basically you end up, in a state where, since you're in pain, like you would try to like look for pleasure, and like that basically makes us kind of want to fat more, like jack off more, because basically we're way more sadder than before. And that's like how like the addiction of vaping slowly starts, and that's how porn addicts like never get to quit, and try no vap, and they would never, like they never got to quit. So in order to deal with that, well, basically the thing that you gotta do is you gotta stop them. Now, your brain may or may not be in fear right now, but you gotta stop these bad habits, because it will just like there will be a few steps that I can tell you to like deal with depression and stuff, and like try to recover from this. But the thing is, if you don't like try to quit, actually, I think trying to quit makes it an addiction even worse. So it's basically you gotta cut them off, you gotta like stop doing them. But the way to do that takes actually a while. It doesn't take like you can't just suddenly cut it out and then like continue on from there. But yeah, it will take really like a really long time, because like basically I was quite struggling with nofap a few, like in the last month I was quite struggling with nofap and video games. Like I was Like I'd reach day 3 and then I'd fab, and then I reach 4 days and then I'd fab. Like those were happening in the last month. And my video game, like I got quite even more addicted, but to like video games. But the thing is, after for some time, like the urges suddenly like disappeared. I was just like, yeah, okay, I accept. Like, yeah, it's okay. Like, I kind of failed to like. It's basically like try and reduce the amount of times or days, the amount of days that like in a month that you fapped or played video games. Like, let's say in a month you played video games for like 30 times, which is quite unhealthy because it's daily video games. But if you reduce that for a little bit, like even for a little bit, like this month you didn't play video games for at least for at least 3 days. Like basically this month you just only played for 27 days, then that's good. Same with fapping. Reduce the amount of times you fap per month. If you fap like every day, yeah, that's still quite unhealthy. Basically, reduce the amount of times that you fap, and basically like that's the ways to like it will take a while to be able to reach the time where you end up like fapping, or you have a better ability to control yourself from fapping. So like don't give up no matter what, because there will be the time where you end up being in the state of like not feeling any urge, because for some reason I am in like quite this state. Like I started like nofab when I was like a year ago, quite a year ago. And like basically what has been happening was I have like felt I am quite in the state of like I am in the state of no urge to fap or play video games. I don't get why this happened. I think like I've been struggling, but for some reason when like when I was like, yeah, I accept, yeah, it's okay and stuff, like for some reason there was no more urges. I think this is what they call it, the golden point, but I'm not so sure about that. But anyway, so let's say you've actually like been trying to quit addictions now. Your baseline will probably slowly start to go back up at least a few times, and like it's gonna go like this. But basically, you gotta do the good habits. Like I think you know a few of them, but if you don't know, it's basically like lift weights or do some push-ups if you don't got weights. Like do some good habits, like at least do some like gratitude meditation. Like at least meditate for like a minute or 2 minutes a day to increase focus. Like by doing those things you are improving your mental health, and you're like getting your baseline back up. So basically it reduces the amount of it basically reduces depression. It slowly reduces depression on its own, like by going up and up and up, like new baseline. Like basically by doing these things it is painful, but even though it was painful, it goes back up, and now you have a new baseline. And basically you would feel like way more happier when you like done your push-ups, and like you feel like, whoa, that was a hard workout, that was quite painful, but yeah, I feel quite good. I'm proud of myself, dude. There's also like, while in the well in addiction, when you like fap, basically it feels good, and then it crashes, and now you're in the pain, and your baseline went down because basically it went down because you're in pain, because you just caused too much pleasure, and then it's went back down and goes below baseline. Now you feel even more sad. So like yeah, I guess that's all for like how to deal with depression. It isn't like that much. Just do Let me just wrap them up. First, slowly cut off the addictions. Second, do the good habits. Yeah, like lift weights and stuff. But yeah, that's all. If you want to support me, you can subscribe. Keep on improving life.